Thank you and welcome everybody. And thank you for taking your time for today. We'll have a whole day as the OB has described the agenda. The agenda can be posted online as well for all of us to access as we go along through the day. I want to now introduce our opening panel led by our chief guest today, who is the CEO of ICT Authority Kenya, Mr. Robert Mugo, who will have time to speak to us. But before he talks to us, we'll have our Vice President for Engagement in Africa, Mr. Pierre Andrew, to share with us a few words on what his thoughts are and what Icann is doing in Africa. Otherwise, I want to welcome you all and hope that you have a very engaging day. Thank you and welcome here. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Bob, and of course, it's a first visit to Africa as CEO of Icann, and I was quite impressed by what you hear. I would also like to really thank Kenya for hosting us, because you may not know, but we do have an Icann engagement office here in Nairobi, as in catering for the whole of Africa. So we are very blessed to have been given that support. Well, why the Icann Day during the summit? I think this is our third Icann Day. Just because we also believe that as the summit is about all the integrated activities in the continent, Icann itself is part of its community from Africa. We have what we call the African community of Africans that are contributing to the Icann. So it was important for us also to be part of this summit, and grateful to the conveners of granting this Icann Day. Maybe basically what I have to just say quickly that when we consider Icann's engagement in Africa, I would like to recognize that we are going through a few sort of development within Icann itself, and I would like to thank the African community for what we did. You certainly remember again all those meetings we had been having, in terms of preparing for the transition. And I hope everyone now knows about this transition, what happened. But basically, major things happened since then. We have to review our bylaws in Africa. Icann, we also had to make sure that new structures now are in place. It's quite important. I would just like to focus on one of those kind of structures, or what I call which is important for us, this community, which is something we are now calling the empowered community at Icann. Those who have been with Icann, you will see exactly what we are talking about. But I would like to say that what we call the empowered community Icann is that possibility now that the community has to actually kind of question some of the contribute to some of the outside decision-making process, and even have any conversation. So this Icann Day, you'll see, as you have been pointed out, there's kind of diversity in the thing we want to tackle. It's about knowledge sharing. What are we doing within Icann, in fact? But whatever impact this is having, I'm going to discuss. I would like to insist on what we are calling the ZNS industry. As Icann, Africa staff, we do have a kind of double sort of mission. It's about increasing participation from Africa. But for us, it's also about making sure that Africa really contributes to the industry. And I keep on saying that's important. That will be part of the industry. What I mean that it means, okay, basically it means how are we doing in terms of the unique identifiers. Okay, are we consuming the IP addresses, for instance? How are we making policies around those? The DNS. Are we increasing our registrar or our registrar doing business the way they would like to do? Today it's hard for them to do it, but certainly the solution will be there. And what does the market look like? What can one do to actually impact on that market? These are things that we try to do as a strategy. And also how to make the internet much more resilient. And I'm happy that a few of our colleagues are around. David is there. We'll be talking about the key signing key, which is quite important to maintain this sort of integrity, I would say, of the internet. So we do have many things there for the day, and I won't talk too much. I would like to actually say again thanks to all for coming, and I believe we will be having very interesting sort of exchange. So what it's all about? It's about exchanging knowledge. With that, let me leave it to Bob. Thank you again for being here.
Maybe I will also introduce the rest of the Icann staff in the room, especially for those of you who have lined up those difficult questions. You might know where to direct them. Definitely not towards me or Yahweh. We have David Conrad. Maybe David, you want to make clear. So David Conrad is the Icann CTO. So all your technical questions, you know where they should be directed. Please not towards my direction. We also have Luna Madi, who is in charge of comms for EMEA region. So all of them are here, and I believe you are well covered today. I want to move very fast to introduce, I'm not sure if I will be able to introduce him, but he is the youngest member in the panel in front of you. And he used to be tall, but something happened. This is our own Dr. Ni. I can only say that he's growing younger and would want to speak to you. Thank you and welcome, Dr. Ni.
Good morning. I was asked to share a little bit about the origins of the community that we have been describing as AF Star. And I thought the best way to do it is to share a very old set of PowerPoint deck and leave the rest to you to see how far we have progressed. Because this will look like a bit of a blueprint of where we started. This started, next slide please. This started at a meeting that was organized by Cotonou. This was about the time that discussions on transitioning from NUSCO to Icann was going on. It was a very active period where the whole community was trying to figure out how we might develop what has now become known as Icann. And in this case, it covers a period of maybe 1995, what was going on. And in 1995, we were really just concerned about providing, capital-city connectivity. There was practically nothing. In my own country, it was in 93 that we got some significant connectivity. And we also saw the period between 95 to the date that this presentation was made, that we were trying to get ourselves organized. And I'll share some of the things we were doing. And also note that around the 96 area, there was also a reform process going on with regards to the PTTs, which were very, very bulky all in one. regulator, policy maker, operator, everything was all together. And then from 97 on, there was some sense of a changing governance environment. I'm sure stimulated by the disruptive nature of the internet. Next slide, please. So at this meeting, we felt that we needed to communicate something as to the direction we wanted to go. And at that point, I noted that North America, Europe, and Asia were a lot more organized than we were. And Latin America, who at the time appeared to be at par with us, was also beginning to accelerate in their self-organization process. And it was evident that Africa needed to not just walk, but to start to jog. And so we also decided to figure out what to do. Now, because we had a natural, you might say, economic or environmental, I don't know how to describe it, similarity with Latin America and Asia, there was pressure, coming from within this group that we should do something. We should not leave things alone. We should do something. Next slide. So at this meeting, it was pointed out that we needed to focus on building some institutions that were necessary for coordinating better our activity in this space. And we wanted to focus on building knowledge centers because it was too much. One person could not be CCTLD at the same time chasing numbers, at the same time representing the consumer or at large, or it was just too much. So we decided to somehow start to segment the work we had to do so that we can bring some focus. And the idea was to build knowledge centers and then create avenues for Africans to go to contribute in more specific ways. At the same time, harness what we considered was the potential that we had, and then maybe create lobby channels or channels through which we can get our concerns or issues ahead. And we thought that could also end up being a repository of our history because it was going so fast. It was somewhat difficult for someone to be writing all these things at the same time. Next slide. Now, we also knew that we could not be going to people to constantly beg for funds. So we realized that some self-reliance was very important. And this is what perhaps has created a semblance of sustainability. We also knew that we could not do it all by ourselves, so we had to form the right alliances and associations to do it. But we knew the onus was on ourselves to try very hard to do that. Next one, please. So we devised this technique of incubating. We defined this attitude of incubating ourselves, but within existing institutions. So, for example, whenever we went to Icann, which was a conference that was held by Internet Society, we tried to meet on the side. That was the approach. Whenever there's a meeting and we get a chance to go, we do a small meeting inside that big meeting. And then we also, got some support from Internet Society to attend these meetings. And so we were able to then carry on doing this work. And we also were at the same time determining who are likely, you might say, drivers for the different activities that we have identified. Next slide. And so this concept of the African Networking Symposium emerged. And the way it emerged was that I was very fortunate to have been added to the program committee of one of the INET activities. And so I asked for a slot so that we could showcase what the African networking scene was like. And that became known as the ANS. And it was really just a meeting place. I did not have any sense of exactly what we do, but we do like a call for presentations among the leadership, and when they come, then we try to engage. But we just felt that we should have, so we call ourselves AF Star, and the star is your regular expression thing, or those of you who are in the complexity, that's any star, standing for 0 to whatever number you are. So we were willing to accept that some of the groups were very strong, some of them were very lightweight, okay? Some of them would fall by the wayside, but we did not want to organize, pre-organize all that. It had to happen organically. So that was, and these were some of the groups that we postulated, okay? Meaning we felt that there was a general group called the African Development Group. I think Pierre was active with that. We, of course, knew immediately that Africa had to happen. And some of you may not know, but David Conrad helped a lot in that process, because I remember one night, late morning in Malaysia, David and myself struggled to produce something that we could then submit as a formal paper regarding this issue. There was also the CCTLD. Around this time, CCTLDs were operating, okay, several of them. I know Alex already was active. The SN and Co. So we saw that CCTLDs had to also come together and discuss common issues among them. Likewise, we're very interested in bringing the social side, the societal side, so that the ISOC chapters were known as African chapters. Okay? So that was also postulated. We thought that ISPs also had to come in place, because that brings the business side of the thing. Initiative from the UN, I think, which you remember, African Internet, what do you call it? African Society Initiative. Okay. And so that also we're trying to bring it in as well. And of course, there was the norm itself, which was non-commercial, just operators training young operators. And so these were postulated as the things that we could do. So the next slide is, I'll go to the very rapidly, and it just tells you at the time what we were thinking. So next one. Notice that in the internet group, we had asked Shemo Chodo from Kenya, from here, and Pierre to drive that process. Next one, please. Okay, and we had asked Alan Barrett to focus the NIC side. Next. And I was stuck to follow, focus the CCTLD side. Next. And the chapter side, we had also asked Honorable Minister Tarek Panel, now Senior Vice President of Icann. So you can see, I want you to determine how we evolve. Okay. Yourself. I'm not going to tell you what we're doing now. That is your different presentation. Maybe I'll do that. Okay. But this one, I want to see historically what was going on. Next. Then the ISPs, there was a lady called Bessie. You remember Bessie? Yeah, she was supposed to focus that business side. And then there was a norm, who was focused by Charles Osisi. I don't know if you remember Charles, but he's from a neighboring country. So this also gives you another way of it. And then the UNECA initiative, this one was I mean, just to give you a hint, that thing has transitioned to African IGF. Are you seeing what's going on? Meaning, if one of these things evolved into something, but they are still in our community. And there were, of course, others. So you can see, even that far back, we were thinking of the RENs, the academic and research networks, and just to fill you in, now we have 3 of them covering the continent. There's West and Central Wakren, there's Internet Alliance, East and Southern, and then there's ASREN, Arab States Research Education Network. So you can see that also has evolved. And we had in mind Internet Exchange Points then. That's AFPIF. That's a program focused by ISOC in Jubilee and so on. And there were some concerns about content, etc. The next one. So at that meeting, recommendations were as follows: that we should get active and make the institutions work. We also wanted to join the ISOP process. This was all before Icann was formed. We also felt that we need to collaborate with the other groups to try to host some of these events on our continent, and we can look for board participation at that same level. And then we also look at the membership advisory committee. That was one of the activities in Icann to bring in more social related issues in representation. Next page. So there was going to be an Icann board meeting, and we were requesting that consideration be given to hosting Icann meetings in Africa. And we knew that our colleagues, remember, we're going hand in hand, the three groups, because we're the least represented. So anything one tried to do, we also tried to do, we tried to dance together, so to speak. And that's how it happened. Then we said we should, Africa should inform other registries and apply to be part of the SO, ASO in this case. Next. Then in the domain name side, we said we should get the EFTL going, and we felt that it could be a very complex group involving trademarks and so on. We said SO, we should try to participate in the IETF, and fortunately there is a discussion next door about getting Africa more involved in the IETF process and so on. Anyway, I think I've given you a fair idea of what was going on in our minds, and I think we can account possibly for our contribution over those decades. We haven't succeeded in everything we wanted, but for each of them, we can all see progress. And my recommendation to you is continue doing it, and you should know that we do have partners. Okay? Icann has partners all over, and we should try to do our best to make good use of it. It is conceivable that there are barriers for our participation, but no barriers ever stop anybody from advancing if you need to. So I just urge you to continue the good work that you are doing and to join the cause of making Africa free. Technical liberation is what we have in mind, and you have friends that will achieve that. Thank you very much.
Round of applause once more. You see, in Swahili, there is a saying that Wahenga was Africa's development from an AF star perspective. It's now my honor to invite our chief guest this morning to give us his remarks and declare this meeting open. I want to invite Robert, who is the CEO of the ICT Authority. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you, Bob. Vice President for Icann Stakeholder Engagement, Icann, all Icann staff, participants, good morning. My name is Robert, I'm the CEO of the ICT Authority, and I'm really glad to be here in Kenya. Just to put into perspective why all these things we're doing are important. George, the BBC. times we had to deliver by donkey because there are no vehicles. There's some places where you come across a laka, so the road normally you just drive across, and because it's rained somewhere hundreds of kilometers away, now there's a river, so you have to use canoes to cross. And it's been one of the most fulfilling experiences in my life. And I thought I'd just share that with you because it brings perspective to why the governance of the internet and all the things that come with it is so important. So, on to my remarks. I was really excited to hear from Dr. Nikwino. One of the things he doesn't know is we kind of have a history because when I was in university many years ago studying electrical engineering, as I was coming to the end of my course, I used to read a lot about this thing called the information superhighway and it was coming up. And there were these young technology graduates in the US who were coming up with all these cool things. So one day a company came to recruit. So typically what used to happen in those days is that all these companies used to come and they recruit university graduates. So you had all your blue chip companies, you had the brewery, you had the banks, you had the government. And there was this startup that came to recruit called Africa Online. And fortunately for me, I was one of the few people who knew what was happening in that space. So whereas everybody else wanted to go to PwC, KPMG, I really wanted to be in this thing called the information superhighway. And they recruited me, and eventually I ended up traveling to Ghana, where Dr. Kweno here was an entrepreneur running an ISP called NCS. So when we were doing Africa Online Ghana, I spent a lot of time in Accra, and that time we were competing. You know, he was the number one, and we were trying to catch up with him. So we go back a long way with Dr. Kweno here. It's amazing. Some of the things that he's talking about in 1998 brought so much memories back to me. So for those of you visiting from other countries, welcome to Kenya. On behalf of the government of Kenya, we're really glad to be hosting this particular forum. The government of Kenya has placed a lot of emphasis in terms of use of technologies to really uplift our people. So for example, in that program, you see they were providing devices to children. And for me, initially, I thought, how are we going to manage 1 million devices to 2,000 schools across the country? First thing we had to do was connect power to each and every primary school, public primary school, 22,000 of them. And as you know, for us in Africa, that is very, very challenging. There's a range of costs and so many other factors. But this is something that we've been successfully able to do. But at the end of the day, for you to use these devices, you need to find a way of charging. The other component of this program is important is the teacher training. So you're not replacing the teacher, you're just enhancing their teaching capabilities. One of the things that I found interesting is most of our communities, at class 1 level, they learn in the local language. They don't know a word of English, they don't know a word of Kiswahili. But when we deliver the devices to the kids, within a couple of days, they are operating these devices, they've had them all their lives. And I remember one school we went to at the border of Kenya and Tanzania. I'd never been there, I was using Google to navigate, and at some point there was no more network. And Google said, okay, you are there, and I look around and I don't see it. So we had to drive around a bit, we found some local community, actually some Maasai living there. And of course they see a vehicle approaching. It's a true story. First thing people do, they hide. Then after some time, the eldest lady in the house came out, and she asked, okay, they said, yes, you're looking for this school. I said, yeah, you're going for the function network. I said, yes. So how much children go to that school? So she said, give them a list. So we got into the car and drove there. And when we started the function, when we do the launches in the school, it's not a theory. We actually sit on the classes, or rather on the desks that these children want to use, and the teacher teaches us on the technology. And I remember the teacher saying to all the kids, okay, now log in. So part of the solution is a classroom management solution. So each and every individual student has to log in with their name so the teacher can see that everybody's logged in and be able to see who's doing what, because you can administer tests online. And to me, this is a place, no network, middle of nowhere, no roads. Actually, one of the places we saw there, we got stuck. And for all the kids, when they were told log into Wi-Fi, I mean, they did it in seconds. And I'm thinking to myself, this is probably the only Wi-Fi network we're doing also as government is one of our big challenges is youth. We have a lot of youth. I think 70% of our population is under 35 years old, and they're looking for work. However, we know work is changing. And I tell people nowadays, it's no longer like in my time when you went to school, you got recruited, you had an 8 to 5, and you had to take public transport every day to and fro work and that kind of thing. After 20 years, 30 years, and retire. It's very different now for our youth. And one of the things we're driving is something called Ajira. And Ajira in Kiswahili means work. And we're trying to give our youth a lot of skills, training in terms of for them to be able to access all the online jobs that are there. Because in many of these rural areas, these kids may not have the opportunity to access the internet, they may not be able to get formal work. So we're trying to make sure that kids, the youth, they actually have skills to be able to access these jobs. So if you go to Amazon's area, the very basic jobs like transcribing. So if somebody has scanned a document and they want it to be keyed in or digitized into some system, there's so many of those jobs. So our plan is to ensure that we're training Kenyan youth all across the country to be able to access those jobs. So you don't have to have this thing of organization, and people can work from their homes because we don't have those kind of jobs. As government right now, we have a hiring freeze. We can't actually hire people. So basically, in terms of jobs, this is what we see as the future. Give these people access to the internet, give them access to devices, and from there they'll be able to be self-employed and earn a living and do it in the comfort of their homes, wherever that may be. So the government of Kenya, we're rolling out broadband, fiber optic all across the country, trying to make devices more affordable. Part of this program, we have set up 2 assembly plants in Kenya, and we're now starting to assemble here. We know the price of devices coming out of Kenya eventually because of the wages there will be very high. So I think it just makes sense to do this here, because skills transfer, cost, and also device availability. So the stability of the internet is very important to us, because if the internet is not stable and well governed, then these millions of jobs and tasks that are out there that we hope our Kenyan youth can use to access those jobs. If that internet is not stable, then we can't have it. I think Kenya, in terms of, I saw a study recently from Robert, of the 100,000 online workers, 40,000 of them are from Kenya. That says in Kenya there's something that we're doing. As a government, our strategy is to make Kenya a regional ICT hub and make ourselves a knowledge-based, globally competitive economy. So one of the things we want to do is take our place in the world and be one of the leading places where online work goes. So we're going to reach at a country level to everybody else, bring your online jobs to Kenya, because we have the talent, we have the capabilities, and we have so many things that will enable us to do that. So it gives me great pleasure to be here today and meet old friends like Dr. Pedro. The good thing is that we're all friends. And I remember when I was a young system administrator those days, to register a domain in Kenya, there was a guy called Randy Bush. And Randy Bush was a volunteer. So you would send him an email, and depending on his availability, he'd take a day, a week, a month, 2 months to register a domain. We've come a long way. I remember the fight we had in order to get the domain and registration taking place here locally. And I'm glad to see Abdallah is in the room. You know, nowadays we just register a domain to take for granted. But in those days it was very, very difficult. One of the things I'm also glad to be here is because I think there was a meeting in 1999, the African meeting, whether 1999 it was kicked off. And at that time, I went, and that was my first interaction with Africa. We got some training, and soon thereafter we established the Kenya cabinet secretary for ICT. So he's my boss. And you will see him on Monday for those of you who hear from us on Monday. So I think it's a good thing that, many people in this industry are now starting to come together to do things that are important. We've done our thing in the private sector. Now we need to make a difference again because of those children and the youth of this country. So the work we're doing here in terms of internet governance is so important. One thing we really need to emphasize is participation. I remember those days and even now when you go for these meetings, Africa, we need to be there, we need to participate because for us, this is we're talking about 1 million jobs for our people. How is this company not sitting at the table and talking about our needs? If I can talk about M-Pesa, because I have a privilege of also working at Safaricom when we were launching M-Pesa. M-Pesa is the leading mobile money country in the world, and it's not by any chance, it's because of the hard work. And every time we go to launch these devices in the rural areas, we ask, how many of you use mobile money? Literally everywhere. We are talking about every corner of this country. So again, some of the things that we are doing here are very significant meaning to people's lives. That time the pesa was hosted out there, so it's one of the challenges in terms of connectivity, because initially the data centers were hosted in UK, they moved to Germany, and eventually came over to US. So again, the importance of the internet cannot be emphasized. The point I was making on M-Pesa is that Michael, Joseph, and the local team, we took this product, which Vodafone initially had conceptualized, we took it, we owned it, we made it Icann, and that was what has made it a big success as it is today. So again, even with this internet, we participate so that we can find our own destiny, because for other people, this may not be as important as it is for us. So when we did the M-Pesa thing, it was so important that people need to understand money. So I think it's great that there is more participation. So we have to see that we are really participating. Can't emphasize how much more we need to participate, because this is our future, both for work, for our own education, and all that. So with those few remarks, it gives me great pleasure to declare this forum.
Usually say that the internet is an ecosystem, so maybe that term needs to be demystified. Why is it an ecosystem? Now, just very briefly, because I am sure not all of us, maybe some of us have interacted with Icann for the first time, and many of us have interacted with Icann for a long time. So I'll try to be brief concerning those two experiences. But feel free to ask a question anytime as we go forward now, so that I make it as interactive as possible. And I mentioned that we also have other staff members here, so you can ask any question about Icann in this session. Icann, of course, is an acronym that stands for that long name, but the point of focus is the last two ends, which is names and numbers. So assign names and assign numbers. And both of them have a whole ecosystem around them. If you look at names, in terms of domain names, it's a whole ecosystem with a structured way of administration up to the point when you as an end user get a domain name. The same for numbers, as a whole ecosystem around it with the organizations and individuals up to the point where your device gets an IP address. So maybe we'll see briefly about that as well. So this is our global kind of presence in terms of physical offices. Though Icann has got presence in much more countries in terms of staff, but we do have our head office in Tanzania, but we are also present in Nairobi. So this one I have to stress because it is the newest office in the addition. I think you need to clap for us. We are also present, at least. Okay. So this is the spread so far, and the idea is really to take care of the time zones in terms of the regional offices. Okay. Now, so the Icann ecosystem, and I think it is interesting that you are talking about an organization, and at the same time you are talking about it having an ecosystem. But basically, you look at Icann from three perspectives. The first one, and the most important part of the Icann ecosystem, is yourself, which is the community. And this community opens up to a very elaborate and detailed and formalized ecosystems with procedures on how they interact and input into the Icann organization. So you have the community within Icann, and then you have the board that adopts and directs the organization to implement the wishes of the community. So you have that three broad outlay when you look at Icann. So at times, some issues might not really be the responsibility of the organization, as you see. Maybe it's the responsibility of the board, and some of them are actually resident within the community. So when you look at Icann, you really need to have this global view that you have three elements, even though they work very closely, and each has got a very important role to play to make the mission of Icann possible. So if you open up the community, for instance, this is what you get. So some members of that community are actually from government, some are civil society, some are research institutes, some are technical community. And I'm sure in this room, you can actually fit in those categories. So not all of us are, for example, end users. Some of us are actually representing governments. So this is how the community is broadly categorized within Icann. Now in the next slide, Boniface, if you move to the next one. So we try to very broadly maybe highlight the role of each of these constituencies. So if you look at the community, how does it work? And who are they? And what do they do? The same for the board, and same for the organization itself. That's why I say there are responsibilities that may not necessarily be undertaken by Icann staff that are under the direction of the CEO of the Icann organization. So it is important to really place the issues where they belong, and areas that need policy development actually start from the community. And once a policy is finalized and accepted through consensus in a multi-stakeholder model, then it is approved by the board, and that is when the organization is directed to implement it. You might not see the slides very clearly from behind, but we share them with everyone. So this is probably how each of the parts executes their responsibilities to ensure that policy and Icann meets its mission. Next one. And this is the board. So if you open the board itself, the board is a representation of the community. So the community selects those different community groups, select representatives, or nominate representatives that sit in the board. Of course, once you join the board, you might not necessarily be representing your community. You might not imagine this board as a kind of a representative institution like Parliament, for example. But individuals here come from different community backgrounds through a very detailed process. And you could see that almost all the stakeholder groupings government, whether technical, are covered in that board. But at the same time, you have specific skills that are actually filled directly and competitively through what we call a nominating committee. So this is how the Icann board is spread. And the organization itself is represented in that board by the CEO. So yeah, we will talk a little bit in detail about how policy, for example, runs within the community. Remember, we have the community, the board, and the organization. So this process actually is initiated from the community. Now, if you look at the community, there are two parts. We have supporting organizations and advisory committees. And policy is initiated through the supporting organizations, which is listed on the left. But in the process of that development, that policy must come to the public through a public comments period. That is when, after a consensus is achieved through that process, then the board votes on that final policy. That is, and in that chain of discussion, each of us has an opportunity to actually interact and shape and influence the course of activity, because some of this is online. Some of this could be based on language. Maybe you need that document in a specific language that could not be possible at that time. Or maybe the volume of those documents, as you know that it is largely a volunteer process. So you also have to balance your everyday responsibilities and also the activities. So there are a number of challenges, but I think it is critical that our voice and our input is actually felt in such kind of policies, because some of them are very critical, and once finalized, I think really impact on what we do even in this region. You can always ask a question along the process, should you have any. So, I think in the past we have always said we don't do this, we don't do this, we don't do this, and then the question was, so what do you do? Who knows what we do? We don't do so many things. I think we don't do majority of the things. But this is some of the things that Icann does as an organization. And it revolves around names and numbers, those domains that you have. You have a responsibility in ensuring that that system is resilient, is secure. And since it has not broken, I think we have never noticed even the presence of Icann. If power doesn't go off today, we will not notice that there's power, isn't it? But we like it to stay like that. We don't like it to get broken. So we are somewhere in the background. Of course, policy development, which is initiated from the community itself. Root servers, maybe some of you are hosting some in your institutions. Icann operates the L route. And we also support the community actually in the process of that developing of policies, whether it be through logistical support, capacity building, because that is key for them to get introduced and even have new people join that ecosystem. We play a role in supporting that community. Okay. Any question on that? Next, please. Now, for you as the end user, I think all of us only want to have the internet working. The first question you ask when you get into this room is, what is the Wi-Fi? And what is the password for that Wi-Fi? And when you log in and it's working, no further questions. But if it stops working, when more people will be looking at us now, you'll want to know who is responsible. And that is where we might feature. So the responsibilities that Icann does contributes a great deal to ensuring that that internet that you are using today, first of all, is one internet. Okay? Every device must have a unique address for it to get to the internet. So you can imagine ensuring that those addresses, first of all, are maintained uniquely. Be they domain names, be they IP addresses. In fact, you could live without domain names, but you need a unique address. And Icann plays a role in that. So for you as an end user, what you look at or what you are interested in is a working system. And I think we play an important role in ensuring that the DNS infrastructure, the DNS ecosystem is secure, is resilient, and is stable. Next, please. So this is just the journey of getting your IP address to your device. So it begins at Icann, that part that we call IANA functions, which sometimes confuse people as another institution or organization, but it is called functions. And maybe David want to enlighten us why they decided to call them functions. David, why are they called functions?
Historical reasons.
Who is called?
Permettre de suivre cette session d'ouverture, professeur Icann, qui va nous parler un peu de ce que nous appelons AF-Star. Donc, professeur Icann va nous parler par exemple de ce qui était à Cotonou en 1998. Donc, beaucoup de gens dans cette réunion actuellement à Nairobi étaient à Cotonou. Donc, l'idée de toute la communauté à l'époque, il va un peu parler de ça. Nous connaissons tous Icann, mais on va encore échanger. Ça nous permettrait de poser des questions sur certains sujets. Donc après ça, je parlerai brièvement de comment se fait le développement des politiques au sein de l'Icann, parce que nous sommes ici aussi pour en œuvre, pour permettre une bonne participation de la communauté. Nous aurons un panel après qui va nous parler de la résolution des conflits liés au nom de domaine. Dans ce panel, nous aurons le professeur Alex Corentin qui est ici. Nous aurons aussi Kenny, nous aurons Ethnic, parler un peu de ce programme des noms de domaine internationalisés qui n'a rien à voir avec le contenu en d'autres langues. Donc, le professeur Icann vient d'arriver. Nous allons aussi démarrer bientôt, comme je l'ai dit. Donc, après, dans l'après-midi, mon collègue Bob, on va parler des outils qui sont dans cette réunion, dans cette salle. Je crois que peut-être notre vice-président va en parler plus en détail. Je crois que la technique est prête. C'est bon? Okay, donc je vais laisser.
Icann is doing in Africa. Otherwise, I want to welcome you all, and I hope that you have a very engaging day. Thank you, and welcome here. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Bob, and of course, very good morning to everyone. Apologies again for the delay. I hope this is not the African time we used to talk about. But we managed to start on time, so sorry. Well, why the Icann Day during the summit? I think this is our third Icann Day. Just because we also believe that as the summit is about all the interrelated activities, important for them to understand that. To understand that Icann is about, of course, the community itself. It's also about the board, and it's also about the staff. So what I would just say that I would like Africa to be much more present having business the way they would like to do it. Today, it's hard for them to do it, but certainly the solution will be there. And whereas the market, and I'm happy that a few of our colleagues are around. David is there, who will be talking about the key signing key, which is quite important to maintain this sort of integrity, I would say, of the internet. I believe we'll be having very interesting sort of exchange. So what it's all about? It's about exchanging views and knowledge. With that, let me leave it to Bob for the rest. And thank you again for being here.
Might know where to direct them. Definitely not towards me or Yahweh. We have David Conrad. Maybe David, you want to lift your hand? So David Conrad is the Icann CTO. So all you have to move very fast to introduce. I'm not sure if I will be able to introduce him, but he's the youngest member in the panel in front of you. And he used to be tall, but something happened. This is our own Dr. Ni. I can only say that he's growing younger, and he's going to speak to you.
Share a little bit about the origins of the community that we have been describing as AF Star. And I thought the best way to do it is to share a very old set of PowerPoint deck and leave the rest to you to see how far we have made progress. And this was about the time that discussions on transitioning from NUCO to Icann was going on. It was a very active period where the whole community was trying to figure out how we might develop what has now become known as Icann. And in this case, our own country was in '93 that we got some significant connectivity. And we also saw the period between '95 to the date that this presentation was made that we were trying to get together. And then from '97 on, there was some sense of a changing governance environment, I'm sure stimulated by the disruptive nature of the internet. Next slide, please. North America, Europe, and Asia were a lot more organized than we were. And Latin America, who at the time appeared to be at par with us, was also beginning to accelerate in their self-organization process. And it was evident that Africa needed to not just walk, but to start to jog. And so we also, it was pointed out that we needed to focus on building some institutions that were necessary for maybe coordinating better our activity in this space. And we wanted to focus on building knowledge centers because it was too much, some focus. And the idea was to build knowledge centers and then create avenues for Africans then to be able to contribute in more specific ways. At the same time, harness all we considered was the potential that we had. Next slide. Now, we also knew that we could not be going to people to constantly beg for funds. So we realized that some self-reliance was very important. And this is what perhaps has created a semblance of sustainability. We also knew that we could not do it all by ourselves, so we had to form into INET, which was the conference that was held by Internet Society. We tried to meet on the side. Okay, that was the approach. Whenever there's meeting and we get a chance to go, we do a small meeting inside that big meeting. Activities that we have identified. Next slide. And so this concept of the African Networking Symposium emerged. And the way it emerged was that I was very fortunate to have been added to a program committee. We tried to engage people in that discussion. So in this case, because I was on the program committee of INET at the time, I started to coordinate this activity. Next slide. Which groups will not be relevant. We had no clue, but we just felt that we should have. So we call ourselves AF Star, and the star is your regular expression thing, or those of you who are in the complexity, that's claiming star, standing for 02, because that brings the business side of the thing. And then there was another initiative from the UN, I think which you remember, African Internet, what do you call it?
African Internet Society Initiative.
Okay. And so these were postulated as the things that we could do. So the next slide, just I will go through them very rapidly, and it just tells you at the time what we were thinking. So next one. Notice that in the internet group, we had Kamel, now Senior Vice President of Icann. So you can see, I want you to determine how we've evolved, okay, yourself. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you what we're doing now. That may be a different presentation, maybe I'll do that in Joburg, okay? But this one, I just want you to see historically what was going on. Central Wakren, there's Internet Alliance, East and Southern, and then there's ASRE, Arab States Research Education Network. So you can see that also has evolved. And we had in mind Internet Exchange Points then. That's active. That's a program focused by ISOC to the other groups to try to host some of these events on our continents, and even look for board participation at that senior level. And then we were also looking at the membership advisory committee. That was one of the early activities in Icann to bring in more of the social related issues, like to be part of the ASO in this case. Next. Then in the domain name side, we said we should get the EFTF going, and we felt that it could be a very complex group involving trademarks and so on. We said in the that was corporate core SO, we should.
There's something that is not clear. You still have an opportunity to ask those who are there from the inception. So thank you very much for that detailed history on how Africa has developed from an AF Star perspective. It's now my honor to invite our chief guest this morning to give us his remarks and declare this meeting open. I want to invite Robert Mugo, who is the CEO of the ICT Authority, Kenya. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you, Bob. But before I start my remarks, I wanted us to go through a video of some of the things that we're doing as government of Kenya, just to put into perspective why all these things we're doing are important. So, George, I don't know whether the video is ready. Oh, the sound.
When a child grows up, they deserve a chance to compete, a chance to dream, a chance to be whoever they want to be. And in today's world, that chance begins with a digital buy water. The future of digital learning is here. This is DigiSchool. Empowering Kenyan children, one child at a time.
that's a project that we're doing as government. So typically what used to happen in those days is that all these companies used to come and they recruit university graduates. So you had all your blue chip companies, you had the brewery, you had the banks, you had the government. And there was this startup that came to recruit called Africa Online. And fortunately for me, I was one of the few people who knew what was happening in that space. So whereas everybody else wanted to go to PwC, KPMG, I really wanted to be in this thing called the information superhighway. And they were competing, he was the number one and we were trying to catch up with him. So we go back a long way with Dr. Bueno here. It's amazing. Some of the things that he's talking about in 1998, they brought so much memories back to me. So for those of you visiting from other countries, welcome to Kenya. On behalf of the government of Kenya, we're really glad to be hosting this particular forum. The government of Kenya has placed a lot of emphasis in terms of use of technologies to really uplift and so many other factors. But this is something that we've been successfully able to do. Because at the end of the day, for you to use these devices, you need to find a way of charging. The other component of this program that is important is the teacher training. Because we're not replacing the teacher, we're just enhancing their teaching capabilities. And one of the things that I found interesting and we take for granted is most of our communities, at class 1 level, they learn in the local language. They don't know a word of English. The community, actually it's the Maasai who live there. And of course, they see a vehicle approaching. It's a true story. First thing people do, they hide. And then after some time, the eldest lady in the homestead came out and she asked, okay, can we help you? And they said, yes, we're looking for this school. I said, yeah, okay, you're going for the function there today? They said, yes. So how children normally use and the teacher teaches a lesson using the technology. And I remember the teacher saying to all the kids, okay, now log in. Because part of the solution is a classroom management solution. So each and every individual student has to log in. And for all the kids, when they were told log into Wi-Fi, I mean, they did it in seconds. And I'm thinking to myself, this is probably the only Wi-Fi network in this place. What are we using it for? Education. And when you look at these kids, there's something in their eyes I have never seen before. That sparkle just tells me we're doing the right thing at the right time, and it's going to be good for the future of our country. Because they're 35 years old, and they're looking for work. However, we know work is changing. And I tell people nowadays, it's no longer like in my time where you went to school, you got recruited, you had an 8 to 5, and you had to take public transport every day to and fro work and that kind of thing. And after 20 years, 30 years, you retire. But we're training Kenyan youth all across the country to be able to access those jobs. So you don't have to have this thing of organization, and people can work from their homes because we don't have those kind of jobs. As government right now, we have a hiring freeze. We can't actually hire people. Cost and also device availability. So the stability of the internet is very important to us, because if the internet is not stable and well governed, then these millions of jobs and tasks that are out there that we hope our Kenyan youth can use to access those jobs. If that internet is not stable, then we have a problem. I think Kenya, in terms of, I saw a study recently from Rockefeller, it was Cape Town. And at that time, I went, and that was my first interaction with Afrinic. We got some training, and soon thereafter, we established the Kenya Internet Kenya Internet Exchange Point at Bruce House. I remember we were doing this over pizza with a guy called Barry Green, who was in Cisco those days. And just to show you, he's my boss. And you will see him on Monday, for those of you who will be here for the other activities on Monday. So I think it's a good thing that many people who've been in this industry are now starting to come together to do things that are important. We've done our thing in private sector, now we need to make a difference, again, because of those children and the youth of this country. So the work you're doing here in terms of internet governance is so important. The one thing we really need to emphasize is participation. I remember those days, and even now, when we go for these meetings, Africa, we're not represented. We need to be there, we need to participate, because for us,
But feel free to ask a question anytime as we go forward now, so that we make this as interactive as possible. An acronym that stands for that long name, but the point of focus is in the last two ends, which is names and numbers. So assign names and assign numbers. Same for numbers, as a whole ecosystem around it, with the organizations and individuals up to the point when your device gets an IP address. So maybe we'll see briefly about that in much more countries in terms of staff. But we do have our head office in Los Angeles, but we are also present in Nairobi. So this one I have to stress because it is the newest office in the addition. I think you need zones in terms of the regional offices. Okay. Now, so the Icann ecosystem, and I think it is interesting that you are talking about an organization and at the same time from three perspectives. The first one and the most important part of the Icann ecosystem is yourself, which is the community. And this community opens up how they interact and input into the Icann organization. So you have the community within Icann, and then you have the board that adopts. So you look at Icann, you really need to have this global view that you have three elements, even though they work very closely. And each has got a very important role to play to make community are actually from governments, some are civil society, some are research institutes, some are technical community. And I'm sure in this room, you can actually fit in those categories. Not all of us are, for example, end users. Some of us are actually representing governments. So this is how the community is broadly categorized within Icann. Now in the next slide, Boniface, if you move to the next one. So we try to very broadly maybe highlight the role of each of these constituencies. So if you look at the community, how does it work? And who are they? And what do they do? The Icann organization. So it is important to really place the issues where they belong, and areas that need policy development actually start from the community. And once a policy is finalized, but we share them with everyone. So this is broadly how each of the parts executes their responsibilities to ensure that policy and Icann meets its mission. Next one, please. And this is the board. So if you open the board itself, the backgrounds, through a very detailed process. And you could see that almost all the stakeholder groupings, whether government, whether technical, are covered in that board. But at the same time, you have specific skills that are actually fit how policy, for example, runs within the community. Remember, we have the community, the board, and the organization. So this process actually is initiated from the community. Now, if you look at the community, there are two parts. We have supporting organizations come to the public through a public comments period. That is when, after a consensus is achieved through that process, then the board votes on that pilot policy. That is when its participation is needed, because you are the one in that community. And in that chain of discussion, each of us has an opportunity to actually interact and shape and influence that policy, even through the public comments. And I think maybe this is one area, could be based on language. Maybe you need that document in a specific language that could not be possible at that time. Or maybe the volume of those documents, as you know that it is our voice and our input is actually felt in such kind of policies, because some of them are very critical, and once finalized, I think really impact on what people are there, even in this region. You can always ask a question along the process, names and numbers, those domains that you have. We have a responsibility in ensuring that that system is resilient, is secure, and since it has not broken, I think we have never noticed even the presence of Icann. And even have new people join that ecosystem. So we play a role in supporting that community. Okay. Any question on that? Okay. Every device must have a unique address for it to get to the internet. So you can imagine ensuring that those addresses, first of all, are maintained uniquely. Be they domain names, be they IP addresses. In fact, you could live without domain names, but you need a unique address. Important role in ensuring that the DNS infrastructure and the DNS ecosystem is secure, is resilient, and is stable. Next, please. So this is just the journey of getting your IP address to your device. So begin the institution or organization. And maybe David wants to enlighten us why they decided to call them functions. David, why are they called functions?
Historical reasons.
Who is convinced? So can they be changed?
Well, they could be called services, I guess.
So you can think of them as Icann services, David says, not me. But today they are functions. But there are three basic elements, and one of it is your IP numbers. So from Icann, you get that distributed to the regional internet registries. And for Africa, we are dealing with Afrinic. So once Afrinic gets that block for Africa region, or the Afrinic region now in this case, then you as an institution or a telco or a network provider or a network operator can then join Afrinic and then apply for IP space. Once you get that space from Afrinic, then you can then redistribute it to your subscribers or whoever is using your network. And that is how that IP address gets to your device. And as an end user, I might not know, and might not even be interested, but my device must have that unique address for you to connect. It starts from the functions or the services, as David says. Next phone. Okay, at level, before I do the last bit very briefly. So this means two things: either nobody understood anything, or I was absolutely clear, or we are all veterans, which would be good. Okay, so all processes or approaches that are, as happened within Icann, is to develop regional specific strategies to really focus on those two areas. And Africa was the first region to have such a program. And that strategy looks at two broad areas: mobilizing what we call the underserved region, including Africa, for their participation. As you saw, the community is the most critical part. Now, if a certain community or region is really not participating within, so it started 4 years ago, in 2012, but it was until late that that strategy was formally adopted by Africa. I'm not sure if there's any member in this team that was part of the first 9 members who came up with the first draft. Yes. So I'm sure he can comment on some of the things that they went through and maybe what informed this discussion. You want to say a few words on that?
Bien, merci beaucoup. Je parle en français. Merci Bob. Merci beaucoup pour cette opportunité très surprise de me donner la parole. En effet, j'ai eu l'opportunité. Moi, c'est Michel Chonon, je suis du Cameroun, membre à FALO, association CAPTA. J'ai eu donc l'opportunité de participer à l'élaboration de la stratégie africaine pour l'Icann. En fait, il faut partir du fait qu'en son temps, on a eu la chance d'avoir un CEO qui était visionnaire et conscient du retard qu'a pris l'Afrique par rapport à cette question. La communauté africaine a essayé d'échanger avec lui pour voir comment on pouvait essayer de mettre en place une stratégie qui aide la communauté africaine à essayer d'établir ou bien de s'impliquer profondément dans tout ce qui concerne les activités de l'Icann en Afrique. C'est après cet échange qui était très fructueux que la décision a été donnée, accordée d'élaborer cette stratégie qui a mis une année. Et l'équipe était constituée de certains experts de l'Afrique, d'un représentant du board de l'Icann et des membres de la communauté. Notre souci majeur était déjà d'élaborer, de regarder qu'est-ce qui était fait, à quel niveau est-ce que nous étions, quelles étaient nos difficultés de l'heure et quelles solutions probablement on pouvait apporter. C'est dans ce contexte que nous avons travaillé et on a eu l'opportunité d'écouter les communautés pour examiner un peu quels étaient leurs besoins, projeter l'avenir. Et effectivement, à l'occasion, nous avons réaffirmé notre vœu de voir l'Afrique avoir une équipe qui soit plus proche de nous dans le but d'implémenter, comme vous êtes en train de le faire ici, la stratégie globale de l'Icann. C'est également à l'occasion que nous avons souhaité qu'il y ait un bureau africain. Et je pense que le Kenya, où nous sommes, c'est le hasard du programme, du calendrier, héberge depuis quelques années déjà le siège Afrique de l'Icann. La seconde chose qui nous préoccupait à l'époque, c'était de voir comment les membres de la communauté africaine pouvaient s'impliquer de manière à être plus dynamique lors des débats, lors des échanges, et effectivement tirer profit des décisions qui sont prises et permettre que leurs difficultés ici soient examinées et des solutions appropriées apportées. C'est dans ce contexte que, fort heureusement, il y a eu la coïncidence de la révolution avec Icann. Et en ce moment-là, vous savez, pour ceux qui ont eu l'opportunité, l'Afrique s'est fortement impliquée. Donc voilà un peu, je ne veux pas prendre beaucoup de temps, parce que sinon on aurait beaucoup de choses à dire. On peut dire aujourd'hui que la présence dans cette salle de la majorité des personnes constitue un impact vrai de la stratégie africaine. On assiste, il y a notamment les différents séminaires sur le DSN qui est organisé depuis un moment par l'Icann. Je crois que ce sont autant de décisions et je pense, pour ma part, que la dernière chose qui va certainement voir le jour, qui est en train de se mettre en place, c'est de susciter au niveau de la communauté la création des entreprises liées au numérique. Voilà, merci beaucoup.
I know the headsets are not enough. There was a mix-up a bit, but that will be addressed from the afternoon. Apologies for that. So today we have at least 3 staff in Africa, led by regions and languages that we have, including Portuguese. So in terms of some of the projects that we managed to do under the strategy, and of course focusing on those 2 broad objectives, one on building capacity, be it technical around domains, and having our community participate within Icann ecosystem. So we target those 2 main objectives. So they range from doing DNSSEC trainings and ensuring that we try to improve the security of our registries, CCTLDs in Africa. We have also tried to launch some programs on training registries and registry staff on marketing domain names. And I wish Ali could maybe have a 1 minute, but really, because we realized we had done a lot of training plus other partners, including AFNO, but those trainings were really technical. So once you have a working platform, the registry is up and running, then that registry must have something to run. And we realized that most of our registries were really having only technical stuff. But was that enough? So clearly there was a need to, so you have more domains that have come on board. So how does that interplay in this era from a legal perspective? And how are our registries really in a position to professionally and competently really cover themselves in such scenarios? So we felt those two.
As Bob said, one of the major issues that we have found within the DNS marketplace in Africa is that, with all due respect to all the registries and registrars that are in the room today, is that this space is still quite underdeveloped. And I would probably say it's in its infancy. One of the issues about growth, for example, people talk about price. And my contention would be one of the most expensive CCTLDs in the world is actually one of the fastest growing and the largest. So I think what is lacking is possibly a more clear understanding, more awareness of the CCTLD space, and more in comparison. What you find that we found quite a bit of situation where people think a .com is better than a .ke or a .ng. So it's the perception issues. Lastly, I think there was a problem with an issue to do with fulfillment. So people want to go online. The Randy Bushes of this world are not even an endangered species. They are extinct. So people want to go online and register a domain within 2-3 minutes. So that whole user experience conversation, that whole marketing conversation is now a conversation that we must have, and we must take it to the next level. And I think that's all I can say. And I'm happy to have a conversation with any one of you later on, because Bob sort of threw a monkey at me. He didn't tell me that he's gonna ask me to say anything. So I'm here most of the day, and I'm happy to have a conversation. Thank you.
Thank you for grabbing your monkey. And there's no problem with being in any of those. But if you ask that question and realize that I think 90% would prefer a particular platform, regardless of how secure or your other options are, including your CCTLDs, and then you realize there's awareness that is lacking around there. So that marketing discussion must, but we need that other discussion as well.
I'm sure Abdallah will not agree with you.
Definitely. We don't have to agree all the time. Next. And maybe just to highlight that is in central. That is the central part of Africa, isn't it? Yeah. And the idea is to focus on 3 areas. First of all, the youth and academia, in terms of what we are calling new audience that we would want to introduce very early into the community ecosystem. But we also want to use that office to really focus on institutional engagement. So our own government, the Ministry of ICT and our regulator. So we feel that going forward, we'll be doing more of that so that we target specific constituency groups and really help them understand Icann better, understand how they can participate and where to participate. And so in terms of one of the last slides, interested in this industry, on what to focus on, what are the challenges, and really make you really come out with a very informed decision when you are joining this industry in Africa. Next. So we want to call upon you to, whenever they happen closer to you, we also really ride on a number of other events by other partners and stakeholders, and use those platforms to also talk about some of the key things that we are doing. So this is really a call to action to the community to be part of this work. You don't drop down unless there are other questions. Thank you, and I want to invite Yaovi to. So as Yaovi comes, we can ask the questions.
Membre du collège de l'autorité de régulation des télécoms et des postes du Sénégal. Une première question, je voulais savoir où est-ce qu'on en est sur Dan Africa. J'en avais entendu parler, bon, j'avoue que je n'ai pas suivi depuis quelques séances. Où est-ce qu'on en est cette affaire-là? Deuxièmement, au niveau des noms de domaine et des noms de domaine supérieurs, les GTLD, est-ce que nous sommes limités? Comment c'est géré en Afrique? Est-ce que les noms qu'on connaît aujourd'hui, on peut en avoir encore? C'est limité? Comment sont gérés les noms de domaine et les GTLD? Combien d'adresses IP aujourd'hui dispose-t-on en Afrique? Y a-t-il une clé de répartition quelconque par rapport au pays, par rapport au développement des pays, ou comment c'est géré simplement ces choses-là? Dan Africa, nombre d'adresses IP, les GTLD dans le domaine, comment c'est géré? Est-ce qu'on est libre? Comment justement le bureau africain, en tout cas l'Afrique, comment gère-t-il ces choses-là? Et quelle est sa marge de manœuvre? Et voilà, quelques mots. Merci.
Okay, so with regards to, let's start with IP addressing. Icann's role in allocating IP addresses is limited to allocating large blocks of addresses to the regional internet registries. Beyond that, any organization that wishes to obtain addresses for connectivity would need to approach their regional internet registry. In the case of the African region, that would be AFRINIC. AFRINIC will be undoubtedly interested in providing what help they may to any organization that needs the address space. The Icann African office has no role with regards to the allocation of addresses. The IANA function that allocates blocks of addresses to the regional internet registries is actually performed at the Icann headquarters in Los Angeles. But at this point in time, that IANA function is sort of idle because there are no IPv4 addresses left in the IANA pool to allocate, and the IPv6 address blocks that have been allocated by IANA are so large that it's unlikely the regional internet registries will come back, at least in my career. That hopefully answers the question related to IP addressing. With regards to GTLDs, I remember the questions, the process by which the additional new GTLDs are to be allocated, is that correct? Yeah. So right now, there is an effort underway to define sort of the next round, the policies that will be created to allow for the creation of new GTLDs in another round of GTLDs. The current status is that you cannot get a new GTLD. The last round is closed, and we're in the process of finalizing the last few delegations of the new GTLDs that were created in the last round. I believe the estimates for when the new round, if it opens, would be somewhere around 2020 or so, is sort of a reasonable estimate. But that's all dependent on the community and what the community wants to do with another round of new GTLDs. And with that, I will hand it over to Lina.
Could you just repeat the question on the .Africa, because I missed out on that?
Okay, but it's basically on the status. Was it delegated? Was it something like that? Just asking.
So on .Africa, it has been delegated, and it should be available to the public come July, if I remember correctly. But yes.
The process of policy development in Icann. So this is like what is happening in Africa. According to agenda, I think on Wednesday, the community will also be discussing again about some of the policies. So we have, this is the process in Icann, the community. And if you see on the next slide, for example, you will see that we have supporting organization, some 3 main supporting organization who develop the policy, and then you have like the generic name supporting organization, GNSO. You have also the CCNSO, the country code name supporting organization. So from all the presentation, you know more about all the supporting organization for those. The GNSO particularly is like this slide is like an introduction to the next session. We are going to talk about the nation, the AFRALO, the civil society. So on this slide, we have what we call the non-contracted parties. In the GNSO, the generic name supporting organizations, we have the participant. So the fellowship, the next one, the next slide. The fellowship and the next gen programs, there are 2 programs from Icann to help the community to participate physically to Icann activities. So we have the opportunity to participate. So the next Icann meeting, for those who don't know, we have 3 physical meetings every year. So the next one is happening next month in Johannesburg. So not so far from here. We have a fellowship that will fellow from Africa and from other regions that will be participating to attend this program. So it is a really unique opportunity, and then you can also better understand. The next slide is what you can get more information. So I said we don't want to talk too much about this program, just to mention them that we have this program, and then you can share this information. Because sometimes we think when we share, like if you have a limited number of scholarship, so I may be afraid that if I share, so that is very important. So, and from time to time, Icann is trying to increase the number of scholarships. So we just have 3 minutes for the fellows who are in this room. They want to share their experience because we are not here to talk Icann only. So we can start with Bonpas, who is from Kenya. So Bonpas wants to share some word about the fellowship program. Then we have Sarah at the back. We have other people. So you can take you one minute to talk briefly of your experience in the fellowship program. Thank you. Bonpas.
This is an entry point into understanding the Icann world. So I got in as a newbie, but this time I'm an expert in course because I'm still learning from the experts themselves. So I've been privileged to be a coach during Icann 58, where I was given the responsibility to mentor other newcomers on the program, and I'll also be going to Icann 59 as a coach. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Alaji Sise. I'm also a fellow from the Gambia. My first fellowship was in Buenos Aires Icann 53 Argentina, and second was in Marrakesh, and then Denmark, and I am also attending this meeting in Johannesburg. Well, the fellowship program is one entry point, as Boniface mentioned. It's the place where newcomers were introduced to Icann, the structure of Icann, and the different stakeholders, how to get involved as a newcomer and stuff like that.
Okay. Thank you. The next fellow in the room.
The Secretariat of Afrano. So I'm happy to share some more and discuss. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. So I think we don't have, what I would like to do is that we don't have.
Maybe because of this workshop, and maybe because of the internet policy that I attended since my planning with her, because we have to stay and be part of this workshop. So try to be part of Icann Fellowship. It's very good for you to be part of the internet community. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So, what said I should come and talk to the meeting? Thank you. So you have the floor.
The first Afrinic meeting. Finally, I came here. Before I involved in the Icann board, I was doing the Afrinic Executive Council for a long time, and Afrinic is one of our friends. So I'm really happy. So thank you very much for and it will be introduced more and more. So please know better about Icann, and please do participate and have your say proud in the Icann community. As a board member, I am doing some sort of the strategy and some sort of supervising the management and some other thing. But moreover that, the board member is quite keen to do the half the internet better. And then, especially in Africa, we have a lot of engagement and promoting. Thank you very much, and I enjoy this.
Thank you very much. I said he has a long delay. He had to stay in the airport for many hours, and then he just landed in, and not considering the time zone difference, he wanted to join us. So we thank you very much. So
structure. Just 1 minute. Advisory Committee, ELAC, is composed of the 5 regional organizations. We have Africa, Asia Pacific, Europe, Latin America, and North America. And there are 15 members from each region who represent us to beyond that. So that's how the structure of at-large is. So we start with the at-large structures right there. From the at-large, different at-large structures form a RALO, that's a regional at-large organization, and then the RALOs select 3 members to represent us to the at-large executive committee, and then we select 1 member to a RALO. So if you have an organization, or if you have a group of people, and you would like to participate in policy development, we'd like to invite you to join a RALO so that we can make our voices heard together. Why should you become an ALS? There are very many benefits. These are just a few of them. So you can educate your members on what Icann does. You can make your voice heard to the Icann board. You can participate in policy development. You can actually impact how the internet is run. That's why you should form an at-large structure. These are just some links that you can go.
Please, are we okay with this proposition? Okay, thank you, sir. Oh, go ahead, please.
Bonjour à tout le monde, moi c'est Tidjani du Tchad. Bien, ma préoccupation est toujours liée à la question de la langue. Tout à l'heure, vous avez présenté vous-même, Yaovi, le processus d'application pour les 2 programmes de FELO. Donc, les 2, moi je crois que les 2 programmes de FELO sont exclusivement, l'application est exclusivement en anglais. Donc je crois, et c'est bien dit, et j'ai le preuve puisqu'il est dit On dit qu'elle part là-bas, que ça serait mieux de faire l'application en anglais, puisque le comité de sélection est exclusivement des membres anglophones. Donc, ceci étant, moi je crois qu'il y a déjà une exclusion quelque part que d'autres communautés, ceux qui ne peuvent pas s'exprimer en anglais normalement, comme mon cas par exemple, j'ai appliqué plusieurs fois peut-être avec les anglais boités et tout ça, donc je n'ai pas, ça n'a jamais été à ma faveur. Donc ceci, je crois que c'est déjà un problème. Est-ce qu'à votre niveau déjà du bureau africain, vous avez songé à cette question-là d'apporter peut-être cette voix un peu plus haut pour que cela puisse être pris en compte? Donc, il y en a qui remarqueront que peut-être je suis un peu le défenseur de la francophonie, mais ce n'est pas le cas. C'est juste pour qu'on ait une société inclusive. Il faut également cette... il faut soulever toujours, il faut évoquer toujours cette équitabilité de la langue. Merci.
Thank you for the question. So I'll make the information available in 2 languages. Recently, our team posts on the African mailing list. Our team used to use also the African mailing list. We post information there, and we are trying to make the information available in French and English. And recently, Icann created video materials, and in French and English to explain this program, fellowship and next gen. So they are also available on Icann website. And when they were released, we also send information in French and English. So I want to assure you that it's not just people speaking English that are benefiting from this program. So we have many people speaking French. So I just want to tell you to continue applying. So if you continue, you keep applying, and then you can get the opportunity. Kenny also, so Alice, thank you. So the presentation from thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Léovi. Je remercie je remercie d'abord de cette opportunité parce que je vais parler justement de la résolution des conflits sur les noms de domaine, qui est un aspect extrêmement important justement dans la tenue et la gestion des noms de domaine, surtout dans les noms de domaine pays, plutôt des CCTLD. Et cette présentation, je l'ai faite en tant que président de la FTLD, donc président du comité exécutif de la FTLD. Et je suis très heureux de partager justement cette opportunité avec Abdallah Omari, qui est le gestionnaire du point KE. Moi, je suis le gestionnaire du point SM. Alors, pour rappeler un peu le contexte, je crois qu'il est important de revoir un peu qu'est-ce qui se passe au niveau de l'Internet, plus particulièrement dans un nombre croissant de besoins et d'utilisateurs potentiels qui sont en train de s'exprimer pour avoir accès à Internet, surtout d'avoir accès à un nombre de domaines. Il y a beaucoup de possibilités. Aujourd'hui, les utilisateurs et les registrants, ceux qui ont besoin de nom de domaine, se plaignent généralement parce qu'il n'y a pas de point focal, de point central sur lequel ils puissent s'appuyer pour pouvoir gérer ces noms de domaine. Il y a bien sûr les registres, mais derrière les registres, il y a les registrars, il y a les bureaux d'enregistrement, il y a tout un aspect, il y a tout un écosystème qui est mis en place au niveau des domaines qui n'est pas des fois très explicite au niveau de l'utilisateur final. Il y a un certain nombre de règles qui permettent de définir quelles sont les conditionnalités pour détenir un point ordre. C'est généralement ces 2 cas d'espèce que l'on retrouve le plus généralement. Dans les CCTLD, il y a un certain nombre de pays qui sont gérés, qui ont décidé d'avoir une politique ouverte, c'est-à-dire sans restriction, mais la majorité des cas, il y a une charte de nommage qui est définie au sein de chaque pays, ce qui donne un certain nombre de spécifications généralement à la mise en œuvre d'une économie. L'économie, aujourd'hui, s'appuie sur la notion de marque. Et beaucoup de structures aujourd'hui, donc, à ce moment-là, il peut y avoir des conflits. Des conflits, pourquoi? Parce que les noms de domaine sont quand même, bon, ça les régulateurs vont être contents, on peut dire qu'il n'y a qu'un nom de domaine par extension. Toyota.sn n'existe qu'une fois, on peut pas avoir 2 Toyota.sn. Donc, cela transparaît un peu comme étant une ressource rare. Alors, maintenant, il faut mettre ça en évidence par rapport à la problématique justement de l'extrait, justement de la protection des noms de domaine sur les droits de propriété intellectuelle. Alors, la problématique des résolutions fait que nous avons deux communautés qui s'affrontent. La communauté de l'Internet, qui généralement va travailler au départ sur premier arrivé, premier servi, dans la gestion des noms de domaine par exemple au début, et c'est à ce moment-là, n'importe qui peut demander une extension de nom de domaine. Et les droits de propriété intellectuelle qui protègent de manière spécifique, suivant un certain nombre de règles, les détenteurs de droits de marque ou soit au niveau d'une région. Il s'agissait tout simplement de la marque bien connue Orange. Je pense que tout le monde connaît Orange, hein, qui est une marque généralement d'opérateurs de télécommunications qui actuellement a une capacité d'extension surtout en Afrique qui est extrêmement forte puisqu'elle couvre de plus en plus de pays. Elle a envie de s'étendre au niveau de beaucoup de pays. Et quand la marque a voulu arriver au Sénégal, il s'est trouvé que justement, quelques temps avant, un opérateur de matelas au Sénégal avait créé un modèle de matelas dont la couleur était orange, les matelas mousse. Et il a voulu appeler ce matelas de manière spécifique orange. Donc il a demandé le nom de domaine orange pour protéger ce matelas, pour qu'on parle de marque. Et 6 mois après, l'opérateur de télécom Orange est venu s'installer au Sénégal. Le branding a été utilisé au Sénégal. Nous nous sommes trouvés face à un problème. Qui est détenteur de ce droit de marque? Est-ce que c'est le matelassier, ou est-ce que c'est l'opérateur de télécom? C'est là que nous avons dû mettre en place ce que je vous ai expliqué un peu tout à l'heure, comment gérer ce conflit au niveau légal, tout en s'appuyant sur les règles internationales. C'est ce que nous allons essayer justement de mettre en place dessus. Donc, aujourd'hui, next please. Aujourd'hui, si l'on regarde justement la problématique, on s'aperçoit que les droits de marque sont protégés soit au niveau régional ou international. Aujourd'hui, pour le cas de l'Afrique, l'Organisation africaine de protection intellectuelle, l'OAPI, basée au Cameroun, normalement a pour mandat de protéger les droits de marque ou les droits de propriété intellectuelle sur le continent africain. Et donner des attestations de protection. Ce qui se passe le plus souvent, c'est que justement, par contre, les possibilités d'examen exactement sont très faibles. Et on n'a pas réellement de structure qui soit réellement bien organisée pour pouvoir vérifier si oui ou non. On n'examine pas exactement ce qui se passe, on ne regarde pas si les droits de propriété ont été mis en place, ni quoi que ce soit. Ce qui nous intéresse, c'est de pouvoir donner la possibilité au registrant de pouvoir utiliser son nom de domaine. Alors, c'est là que nous avons ces problématiques qui vont se mettre en place. Que se passe-t-il dans le cas où il s'est passé? Nous avons deux possibilités. Donc, soit d'aller devant les tribunaux pour régler ce litige sur la propriété du droit de marque de Orange au niveau du Sénégal. Seul un tribunal de droit sénégalais peut
the athlete community, which is the community that represents the interest of end users in Icann. So I'm sure they will be told you about the different communities that are there, but I'm not talk about specifically the end users. So we work in something called applied structures. So sorry, my presentation is not up. So just in case. Yeah, so we work in something called applied structure.
So if you have questions, we try to manage them. If you have some questions, just raise your hand. Or we will have the presentation. And so we have those 5 minutes.
Okay. Yes, so we are good to go now. We are going to talk about the applied community, which represents the interest of users to the Icann. So about the applied, it's a community of internet users. Okay. They participate in policy development in Icann, and there are different kinds of policies that you participate in, like for example, IBM policy, that is internationalize the names. So you come and say, you come and represent your country, your language, things like that. Then we talk about new GTIDs, Icann information, public interest. There are so many policies that affect Icann that we can participate in as end users. We have more than 220 applied structures globally. So I'm going to tell you what applied structures are in a short bit. The Applied Advisory Committee, ELAC, is composed of the 5 regional organizations. We have Africa, Asia Pacific, Europe, Latin America, and North America. And there are 15 members from each region who represent us to beyond that. So that's how the structure of applied is. So we start with the applied structures right there. From the applied, different applied structures from a YLO, that's a regional applied organization. And then the YLO select new members to represent us to the applied executive committee. And then we select one member from that to represent us to the board. So we have one seat on the Icann board. That's just showing you the different regions that we have. Then this will then tell you about the African region. So in the African region, we also have something called AFRELO, which is the African Regional Applied Organization, and we want to strengthen user participation in Icann. So we build capacity, we are invited to speak at events, and we always encourage applied structures to join AFRELO. So we have 15 applied structures in 30 countries in Africa, and the applied structures are professional societies, academic organizations, universities, community organizations, internet society chapters, just any group that is already established that can represent us to a firm. So if you have an organization, if you have a group of people, and we would like to participate in policy development, we'd like to invite you to join a fellow so that we can make our voices heard together. Why should we become an AAS? There are very many benefits. These are just a few of them. So you can educate your members on what Icann does. You can make your voice heard to the Icann board. You can participate in policy development. You can actually impact how the internet is run. That's why you should form an applied structure. These are just some links that you can go to, but we have some more material outside there that you can use to, or you can talk to me and get more information about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. So if you have some question, we'll take a question after the panel. We are suggesting a little change in the agenda because we're supposed to have 2 sessions before lunch. So what we are going to do, we'll be time to Professor Alex and Kenny to talk about the dispute resolution so that we have time to interact. And then we'll have the presentation on IPM after lunch. So this is what we are suggesting. Is I will agree with this proposition? Okay, thank you. Go ahead, please. Objection or question?
Bonjour à tout le monde, c'est Icann du chat. Ma préoccupation est liée à la question de la langue. Tout à l'heure, vous avez présenté le processus d'application pour les 2 programmes de FELO. Donc, les 2, moi je crois que les 2 programmes de FELO sont exclusivement, l'application est exclusivement en anglais. Donc, je crois, et c'est bien dit, je crois que c'est dit, on dit quelque part là-bas que ça serait mieux de faire l'application en anglais puisque le comité de sélection est exclusivement de membres anglophones. Donc, ceci étant, moi je crois qu'il y a déjà une exclusion quelque part que d'autres communautés, ceux qui ne peuvent pas s'exprimer en anglais normalement, comme mon cas par exemple, j'ai appliqué plusieurs fois peut-être avec les anglais portés et tout ça, donc ça n'a jamais été à ma faveur. Donc ceci, je crois que c'est déjà un problème. Est-ce qu'à votre niveau, vous êtes bureau africain, vous avez songé à cette question-là d'apporter peut-être cette voix un peu plus haut pour que cela puisse être pris en compte? Donc, il y en a qui remarqueront que peut-être si on peut penser de la francophonie, mais ce n'est pas le cas, c'est juste pour qu'on ait une société inclusive. Il faut également il faut soulever toujours, il faut évoquer toujours cette équitabilité de la langue. Merci.
Thank you for the question. So I'll respond in English because you can use So it's a good question, and then even if you think we are late in the agenda, it's good to discuss, and this will take with our contribution. So just to mention that the selection committee is not composed by people speaking English only. So we have many people even from the community who participate in the panel of selection. And regarding the announcement itself, so Icann is trying to make the information available in 2 languages. Recently, our team posts on the Afrinic mailing list. Our team used to use also the Afrinic mailing list. We post information there, and we are trying to make the information available in French and English. And recently, Icann created video materials, and in French and English, we explain this program, fellowship, and next gen. So they are also available on Icann website, and when they are released, we also send information in French and English. So I want to ensure you that it's not just people speaking English that are benefiting from this program. So we have many people speaking French. So I just want to tell you to continue applying. So if you continue to keep applying, and then we can get the opportunity to attend this program. And the Vice President, maybe you mentioned in the afternoon, Africa, we have a special opportunity for the Joburg meeting where we have more opportunity to bring more Africans to the meeting. So the language in Icann also is very important to Icann now. So anytime there is some document, I can try to make them available also in French, especially for Africa. Anytime there is a meeting or something on a mailing list or in a various group we talk about, anytime there is a request for 2 or 3 people, Icann is ready to provide interpretation during webinars. So this is something important to know. So we thank you for the question, but we want to assure you that many information now, they are available also in French. And anytime we have those meetings, like at the beginning, the first one, we didn't have interpretation. during AIS, Icann Day. So now I can put what's needed to have interpretation for this meeting in French and also in English. So thank you for the question. I'll give the floor to Alex. Now this session will take us to lunch. So Alex will start with a presentation and then also moderate clinics will contribute and we'll discuss. So from now to lunch normally is 1, so maybe we can take it to 1:15. So clinic also cannot. So Alex, thank you. So the presentation from thank you. I will speak in French. That will make more confusion for speaking people. Yeah. And in order also to help our English-speaking people to learn French. My start are in English. So, it can be maybe something so we can solve this problem. Merci beaucoup, Valérie. Donc, je remercie donc le débat. Je remercie d'abord de cette opportunité parce que je vais parler justement de la résolution des conflits sur le domaine. C'est un aspect extrêmement important justement dans la tenue de la gestion de domaine, surtout dans le pays, plutôt des CCTV. Et cette présentation, je vais faire en tant que président de la FPLD, président du comité exécutif de la FPLD. Et je suis très heureux de partager justement cette opportunité avec Abdel Abdelmari et le gestionnaire du point KE. Moi, je suis le gestionnaire du point RSN. Pour rappeler un peu le contexte, c'est important de revoir un peu ce qui se passe au niveau de l'Internet, plus particulièrement dans la gestion de l'Internet. Aujourd'hui, l'Internet se caractérise par un certain nombre de facteurs. Aujourd'hui, l'accès au monde d'Internet est relativement peu coûteux, abordable, puisque les coûts sont en train de chuter de manière drastique. Bien sûr, on me dira, dans le cadre aussi de notre pays, il y a encore des choses à faire, surtout en Afrique. Et je pense que là, on a conscience qu'il y a vraiment des politiques à mettre en œuvre, mais ce n'est pas l'objet de mon exposé aujourd'hui. Il y a un nombre croissant de besoins et d'utilisateurs potentiels qui sont en train de s'exprimer pour avoir accès à Internet, surtout avoir accès à l'Internet. Il y a beaucoup de possibilités. Aujourd'hui, les utilisateurs et les registrants, ceux qui ont besoin d'un domaine, se font généralement parce qu'il n'y a pas de point focal, de point central sur lequel ils puissent s'appuyer pour pouvoir gérer ces domaines. Il y a bien sûr les registres, et derrière les registres, il y a les registrars, il y a les bureaux d'enregistrement, il y a tout un aspect, il y a tout un écosystème qui est mis en place autour d'un domaine qui n'est pas de faire très explicite au niveau de l'utilisateur final. Il n'y a pas de régulation spécifique, il y a des règles qui sont mises en œuvre au niveau de chaque registre, on verra ça tout à l'heure. Et surtout, les problématiques majeures de l'Internet, c'est que pour la juridiction, selon la loi qui peut s'appliquer justement quand il y a des conflits. Il y a bien sûr des juridictions nationales, dans le cas des domaines nationaux, il y a des juridictions transnationales, puisque quand on est par exemple dans un pays où le région est élevé, le domaine national possible, à travers le bureau d'enrichissement, tout un ensemble d'aspects, donc il y a une certaine complexité et surtout, ça donne naissance à des problématiques de résolution du conflit. Alors, je vais faire un rappel rapide de l'ex. On va faire un rappel rapide. Il y a deux types de registres qui sont en œuvre actuellement au niveau de l'Alta. Dans le domaine générique et dans le domaine pays. Dans ces deux cas, ce que j'ai essayé de mettre en œuvre ici, c'est de regarder en fait quelles sont les règles qui sont appliquées dans le cas des GTOD et dans le cas des CCTOD. Généralement, dans les GTOD, on a deux types. Les GTOD qui n'appliquent aucune règle, c'est connu avec le premier service. C'est le cas généralement du point com. Donc, il y a une régulation qui est ouverte. Et certains autres qui sont restreints parce qu'ils appliquent des règles de l'autre. C'est le cas, par exemple, du point com. Il y a un certain nombre de règles qui permettent de définir quelles sont les conditionnalités qui ont été définies. Et généralement, c'est deux cas d'espèces qui ont généralement. Dans les CCTV, il y a des CCTV qui sont appelés Il n'y en a pas beaucoup, mais par exemple, on peut citer le cas du TZ. Il y a un certain nombre de pays qui sont gérés qui ont décidé d'avoir une politique ouverte, d'aller des investissements, mais la majorité des cas, il y a une charte de ménage qui est définie au sein de chaque pays, ce qui donne un certain nombre de spécifications, de spécificités particulières à ces mêmes domaines. Alors, pour le relatif respect, on va s'apercevoir que généralement, cela a un problème lié généralement à la mise en œuvre de l'économie. L'économie, aujourd'hui, s'appuie sur la notion de marque. Et beaucoup de structures aujourd'hui utilisent le domaine comme étant aussi une capacité de communication pour mettre en valeur leurs produits, leurs marques, leurs labels. Donc, il est nécessaire à ce moment-là d'utiliser cette extension comme étant une possibilité d'extension de marché. Alors, je prends un exemple simple. Si on regarde les possibilités, par exemple, pour les constructeurs de voitures, aujourd'hui, un constructeur de voitures va avoir Toyota, par exemple, je prends un exemple, je cite personne en particulier, mais je ne peux pas rappeler le nom de produit. Mais Toyota a une politique très directive pour avoir l'opération de marque dans tous les pays du monde, parce que tout simplement, il a généralement un représentant qui représente cette marque-là. Donc, il va y avoir une possibilité, grâce à cet outil, de pouvoir approcher de nouveaux marchés. Il y a, donc, qu'est-ce qu'ils font généralement? C'est que ces compagnies qui ont besoin justement d'avoir une couverture mondiale, pour des efforts extraordinaires du mandat des registres, il y a des registres par exemple de blanchiment pour pouvoir réserver ces mêmes domaines. Donc, à ce moment-là, il peut y avoir des conflits. Pourquoi? Parce que les mêmes domaines sont quand même, bon, ça le régulateur de quelque temps, on peut dire qu'il y a un même domaine par extension. Le pas PSN n'existe qu'une fois. On peut par exemple dire que le pas PSN. Donc, cela transparaît un peu comme étant une ressource rare. Alors, maintenant, il faut mettre ça en évidence par rapport à la problématique justement de la protection des règlements sur les droits de propriété intellectuelle. La problématique de résolution fait que nous avons deux communautés qui s'affrontent. La communauté de l'Internet, qui généralement va travailler au départ sur première liberté des services, dans le domaine de par exemple au début, et à ce moment-là, le parti peut demander une extension de l'environnement. Et les droits de propriété intellectuelle qui protègent de manière spécifique, il y a un certain nombre de règles, les détenteurs des droits de marque, soit au niveau de région, soit au niveau mondial. Alors, il va y avoir une tension. Il va y avoir une tension qui est souvent très forte, et c'est là qu'on va avoir une problématique de résolution du conflit. Et ça, les registres de l'élargissement sont souvent face à face à ce type de problème. Et je peux peut-être citer encore un exemple que je trouve, par exemple, au niveau du frère SM. Il s'agit tout simplement de la marque bien connue Orange. Je pense que tout le monde connaît Orange, qui est une marque généralement d'opérateur de télécommunications, qui actuellement a une capacité d'expansion, surtout en Afrique, qui est extrêmement forte, puisqu'elle couvre de plus en plus de pays. Elle a envie de se vendre au de beaucoup de pays. Et quand la marque a voulu arriver au Sénégal, il s'est trouvé que, justement, quelques temps avant, l'opérateur de matelas au Sénégal avait créé une modèle de matelas dont la couleur était orange, le matelas mousse. Et il a voulu appeler ce matelas de manière spécifique orange. Donc, il a demandé le nom de orange pour protéger ce matelas. Une contrat de matelas. Et 6 mois après, l'opérateur orange est venu s'installer au Sénégal. Mais le branding a été utilisé au Sénégal. Nous sommes trouvés face à un problème. Qui est détenteur de ce droit de marque? Est-ce que c'est le matelassier, ou est-ce que c'est l'opérateur de télécom? C'est là que nous avons dû mettre en place ce que je vous ai expliqué tout à l'heure, comment gérer ce conflit au niveau légal, tout en s'appuyant sur des règles. C'est ce que nous allons essayer justement de mettre en place. Donc, aujourd'hui, si on regarde justement la problématique, on s'aperçoit que les droits de marque sont protégés soit à un niveau régional ou international. Aujourd'hui, dans le cas de l'Afrique, l'Organisation africaine de protection intellectuelle, l'OAPI, basée au Cameroun, normalement a pour mandat de protéger les droits de marque et de propriété intellectuelle sur le continent africain. Et vous avez donc, par contre, ces protections, ça peut se différents niveaux. On peut avoir des différents niveaux de protection. Il y a la possibilité, généralement, au niveau de ces organes, de pouvoir instruire ces dossiers et pouvoir donner à ce moment des avis et donner des prestations de protection. Ce qui se passe le plus souvent, c'est que justement, d'après les possibilités d'examen exactement sont très faibles. Et on n'a pas réellement de structures qui soient vraiment bien organisées pour pouvoir vérifier si oui ou non les dépôts sont bien faits. Après, dans la majorité des noms domaines, dans les registres, aujourd'hui, on essaie de dire, ok, le premier qui a dit, ça peut être servi. Le premier, c'est ce qui nous s'est passé au Sénégal, quand Orange est venu, nous avons décidé, personne ne l'a appris, nous avons décidé de l'attribuer. Il n'y a qu'une seule réduction, il n'y a qu'une seule possibilité d'avoir ce nom du domaine. Et donc, on ne regarde pas, on n'examine pas exactement ce qui se passe, on ne regarde pas si le droit de propriété est mis en place, ni quoi que ce soit. Ce qui nous intéresse, c'est de pouvoir donner la possibilité au registrant de faire utiliser ce domaine. Alors, c'est là que nous avons des problématiques qui vont se mettre en place. Comme c'est passé dans le cas où c'est passé, nous avons deux possibilités. Donc, soit d'aller devant les tribunaux, pour régler ce litige sur la propriété du droit de marque de Orange au niveau du Sénégal. Seul un tribunal de droit sénégalais pour essayer de prononcer sur ce point-là. Ou bien de mettre en place une procédure interne de résolution pour gérer ce conflit. Donc, le premier cas, comme vous allez voir plus tard, est extrêmement difficile à mettre en œuvre et surtout exécuté. Le second, c'est celui que je vais vous présenter, c'est la possibilité de mettre en place une procédure de gestion de ces conflits d'attribution de bonnes domaines de telle façon à pouvoir donner une réponse satisfaisante. Alors, quand vous voulez avoir un conflit, vous voulez aller devant le tribunal, qu'est-ce qui va se passer? Vous allez d'abord, bien sûr, déposer une plainte. Cette plainte, généralement, elle est instruite par un juriste, un avocat. Ce n'est pas n'importe qui peut déposer une plainte. À ce moment-là, cette plainte doit être désignée à de définir contre qui cette plainte s'adresse. Est-ce que la plainte s'adresse contre le registre qui a attribué ce nom de domaine ou contre le registrant qui a demandé le nom de domaine? Ça pose une problématique qu'il faut. Deuxième chose, que prévoit la juridiction, que prévoit la loi dans le pays en question. Est-ce qu'elle permet de bloquer le processus le temps de l'instruction du dossier ou est-ce qu'elle va permettre simplement de donner la problématique de résolution à la fin du dossier? Dans la majorité des cas, on s'est aperçu que dans la loi, généralement, toute injonction bloque l'introduction du même dossier jusqu'à la fin de l'instruction. Or, dans le cas en Afrique ou dans d'autres pays, vous avez déposé une plainte, généralement, elle n'est levée qu'après un délai relativement important. Donc, en termes de business, les deux porteurs de marque, que ce soit le propriétaire d'une matière, que ce soit l'opérateur de télécom, faire de l'utilisation de nom pendant un temps relativement long, donc perdre de l'argent. Donc, ça n'est pas la joie la meilleure. D'accord? La seconde loi, qui est celle qui est la plus intéressante, c'est la loi administrative. La loi administrative, elle est illustrée par l'Union mondiale de la propriété intellectuelle, la MPI, en français, qui a mis en place un bureau d'arbitration et de médiation qui justement juge les litiges concernant les droits de marque et les droits de protection des droits intellectuels. Depuis 1995, il y a cette possibilité de pouvoir se rapprocher de cette structure pour pouvoir définir et trouver une solution concernant justement les litiges concernant les normes de l'homme. Alors, cela permet de faciliter les choses et d'aller beaucoup plus vite que d'aller devant un tribunal. Donc, en 1999, Icann a décidé de s'appuyer aussi exactement sur cette procédure. l'IDRP, une forme de dispute résolution politique, l'IDRP a été adopté par Icann en décembre 1999. Normalement, il a été défini dans le cadre dans le domaine générique où il y avait le plus de conflits, justement, de propriété de la reine. Mais par contre, on a demandé, et il est extrêmement recommandé par Icann, que les sociétés, c'est-à-dire le pays, puissent aussi s'appuyer sur ce processus de résolution. Donc, par exemple, nous, au niveau du pays sénégal, nous avons décidé de faire en adhérant à ce processus IDRP, ce qui nous a permis de résoudre certains conflits. Donc, simplement ce qu'on dit, que si on adhère à ce processus, on prévient quand même que c'est le processus d'arbitrage, mais s'il ne n'aboutit pas, il peut très bien aller au tribunal si les parties le souhaitent. Cela n'enlève en rien la capacité pour les propriétaires de droits de marque, ceux qui se réclament de ces droits de marque, de pouvoir aller devant un tribunal si le litige a lieu dans une juridiction particulière. D'accord? Alors, qu'est-ce que ça a été alors, pourquoi ce processus a été mis en place? Il a été mis en place de manière d'ensemble, simplement pour essayer de gérer les problèmes de droits de marque ou les problèmes de confusion de droits de marque, parce que ça devient aussi important, parce que les gens utilisent aussi des noms similaires pour pouvoir couvrir un peu des extensions de leur domaine. Donc, c'est assez complexe, mais je ne vais pas revenir dans les détails. D'accord? Il y a aussi le fait que le demandeur du même domaine n'a aucun droit, et que simplement il fait du cyberspotting, c'est-à-dire qu'il a envie de prendre un autre domaine et puis après le revendre au titulaire de marque. Je donnerai un autre exemple. Il y a à peine le mois dernier, nous avons eu un problème similaire par exemple au Sénégal, où quelqu'un qui était relativement bien informé savait qu'il y avait l'institution bancaire qui allait s'établir au Sénégal, et 6 mois avant, il a demandé le nom de domaine. Et la banque s'est établie au Sénégal et a voulu avoir son nom de domaine. Ce nom de domaine était déjà attribué. Et nous avons pu faire la preuve que c'était du cyberspotting parce qu'ils ont écrit un courrier à la banque en leur disant, une semaine après avoir pris le nom de domaine, en leur proposant de vendre le nom de domaine 1000 fois plus cher que le prix pour lequel il a acquis. Ce qui, dans notre charte, est strictement interdit. Donc, nous sommes actuellement dans le processus de rétablissement dans les droits de la banque par rapport à ce cybersploiteur. Et donc, il nous a fait faire la preuve que donc, vous n'avez pas de droit à ajuster ce nom de domaine. Et enfin, dernier élément, quand le nom de domaine utilisé a de mauvais usages. Parce qu'il peut y avoir des noms de domaine qui sont utilisés justement à de mauvais usages. Je n'ai pas fait donner d'exemple particulier, mais je vais en donner. Alors, comment utiliser ce principe relativement simple? Vous avez un site qui est sur un pays qui vous permet justement de lancer une procédure d'arbitrage, qui vous permet de dire voilà l'arbitrage, voilà la plainte que j'ai en train de poser et de donner la réponse. Vous reconnaissez tout, vous remplissez ce camp, vous avez une communication via mail qui est faite entre les deux parties. Pour reprendre tout est mis avec toutes les langues possibles, c'est le cas de leur pays, puisque vous avez une version internationale. Et généralement, le coût n'est pas très élevé. Il y a juste un coût entre 1500 et 4000 $ qui permet juste vous allez voir de payer les frais d'arbitrage. Les frais d'arbitrage, c'est généralement la nomination des arbitres, qui sont des panélistes indépendants, qui sont nommés par l'ONPI, désignés par l'ONPI, pour étudier le cas et donner des recommandations. Alors, comment se passe cet arbitrage? Se passe 3 personnes indépendantes sont dominées par l'ONPI pour pouvoir étudier les dossiers qui leur arrivent donné, qui sont impartiales. Ils sont neutres justement par rapport à la problématique, et donc ils vont donner une recommandation. Ils sont généralement des spécialistes de propriété de droit intellectuel et ils vont pouvoir donner la recommandation et le mettre en ligne. Et vous dire voilà ce qui va se passer. Actuellement, il y a dans la base de données de l'ONPI à peu près 1000 spécialistes qui sont déjà interpellés. Ce qui donne vraiment une très bonne visibilité à tout ça. Donc, on peut utiliser toutes les langues, il y a des propres langues qui sont utilisées par ces spécialistes. Alors, juste pour là, je voulais faire un petit appel. Le nombre de spécialistes africains à l'intérieur de même pays sont très faibles. Donc, les problématiques propres sont très peu représentées. Et généralement, les arbitrages sont faits par des experts qui viennent du Nord, d'autres pays, mais les Africains là, aussi, c'est un appel à donner. Il y a très peu d'Africains qui sont actuellement représentés. Alors, le processus, je ne vais pas, vous avez, je crois, accès à ce PowerPoint, je ne vais pas insister dessus. Le processus j'aimerais juste un peu en arrière. Le processus le maximum, si vous le regardez, passe sur les délais qui sont mis en œuvre. Donc, ce qui est intéressant, c'est de savoir que si vous utilisez ce processus d'IRP, il est rapide, il ne coûte pas cher, les décisions sont transparentes et généralement, on ne nage pas au tribunal. C'est respecté si le registre de la dette, c'est un intérêt évident pour éviter comment protéger la demande. En conclusion, ce que je veux dire, c'est qu'aujourd'hui, de plus en plus, nous, les registres africains, et puis derrière, on va activer, on s'aperçoit que l'intérêt de notre domaine est de plus en plus lié à des intérêts économiques. Et c'est la mise en place d'une économie digitale qui est en train de s'affirmer de plus en plus dans nos pays et sur le continent, qui justifie cette demande de plus en plus accrue sur le monde domaine. Et l'autre chose, à ce moment-là, c'est besoin de plus en plus important d'avoir souvent des inférences avec des droits de marque. Malheureusement, et ça c'est notre constat, les Africains n'ont pas tendance à vouloir protéger leurs droits de marque auprès des autorités qui sont en charge de ces aspects. On peut poser la question, combien d'entre vous savent qu'il existe dans chaque pays un bureau de protection des droits d'auteur? One, 2, 3, 4. Ouais. Bon. Ça, mais est-ce que ça vous suivez? Il y en a pris ensemble. Donc, c'est pour vous dire un peu que nous l'avons tout à l'heure. Si beaucoup d'entre nous avons des business, nous avons des marques, mais nous ne les protégeons pas. Ça, c'est un aspect extrêmement important. Donc, ça permet de régler ce problème-là, et justement d'avoir à ce moment-là une protection qui est importante, et surtout de régler les conflits. Les conflits peuvent être extrêmement importants. Alors, pour terminer, ce qu'il faut, c'est vraiment que la majorité des registres africains adoptent ce processus d'arbitrage parce qu'on va aller vers des conflits de plus en plus importants. Je vais terminer juste par un exemple. Un registre que je connais, un européen que je connais, d'accord, compte dans son staff 30 juristes. 30 juristes pour permettre de vider le conflit simplement lié au droit de marque dans un seul pays. Je ne citerai pas ce pays, en Europe. 30 juristes dans un staff de registre, c'est relativement important. Donc, ça nous permet justement d'éviter ce coup. Voilà. Et il y aura plus d'informations sur vous. Je vous remercie de votre attention. Okay, we thank Alex for his presentation. Before we take questions or comments, he mentioned during the presentation that this model of UTRP is something that can be implemented or adopted by CC or TLD. So now we will hear from Kenny, Mr. Abdallah, who will be sharing with us what is happening in Mr. Abdallah, you want to move here? So that people, or you want to move on there? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Andrew, and Professor Alex, for that. You have said the word. We know when our professor speaks, it becomes really hard for our professors to make comments after that. And you have covered quite a bit about the domain dispute processes. As at Kennick, I think I share the Kennick experience. At Kennick, because the system, these are an option of either adapting the video which professors clearly indicated, or creating your own dispute resolution process. At Kennick, we opted to the second alternative of creating our own process, and we have a document called the alternative dispute resolution policy. Currently, the cases which come to refer to that process have increased. We are having about 3 cases per month, which is not bad. It shows that people are now taking key main cases in the domains. And I always say an indication of a civilized society is when people try to sort out their differences in an organized way. Our alternative dispute resolution policy has two levels. One, the mediation process, which is the management of clinic does it with the assistance of the company secretary. Then, if there is no resolution reached at the mediation level, we go to arbitration. We have a list of arbitrators. Then we have shortlisted the people party. If they are not satisfied, that's when we go. I'm happy to say that we are able to 99% of the cases which come at the litigation level are solved at the litigation level. Because what we have discovered is mainly the rule is problem issues. So we find that someone brings a dispute, but after being clearly explained what ownership of a domain is, we find that it's amicably resolved there. It's basically what Professor Alex said that knowledge of the process should be clearly put out to solve, to be able to mitigate future conflicts. And now, what we have seen that are the main reason why we are having this dispute from our own clinical experience is there are three reasons why people bring up the reasons for the dispute. One is the who is information issues. Another one is cyber security. And then the domainers, who are basically business people who buy domains to sell. The ones who are Kenyans, they know Kenya has had a very high level of domain, sensitive domains, including the name of the president. And bloggers have been having a field day when so that somebody took our president's domain and made it the case. And the other got a joke is a really good thing at the table too. So we have been able to handle them very well. And I thank Kenyans for having faith in the process. It started with a highly political but ended up amicably. The good thing is also that the market clinic and the story went viral. Going forward, I will request our community, especially the legal fraternity, and I've seen a number of them are in the room, because they usually handle the business registration point. They should be advising clients when they are registering their business, they should also be registering a domain. The same way we are registering a PO box, because nowadays, when was the last time someone received a letter from the normal post office process? I'm sure we'll have to take time to call people with the last time we received a letter from the post office. Most of our communications are by email. So I request our legal fraternity to, as they emphasize a business to register their post office box, it should also advise businesses to register their domains. These ones will reduce the dispute whenever those domains are picked up by cyber squatters. During business, people have domains and around the members are living out of process. So I will stop there unless there are questions. If there are questions for me. Okay, thank you, Abdallah. Is there any question regarding this issue? Okay, let's start by very fast. You have a mic? Okay. I see the mic, we have wireless mic. Okay. So maybe you can go around with this presentation to your people.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm raising the court to monitor and be professional and to be very insightful of the very grateful. When we find out what has been done to improve the capacity of say advocates in regards to handling such disputes, especially in the local space, because as we've seen, there's a lot of improvement as Abdallah has mentioned. As a couple. What are we doing to improve the capacity? Most of these are very targeted and very specific kind of engagement that needs to be done. Have we specifically had an effort with regards to increasing capacity? Yeah.
Thank you for the question. Thank you for the question. From Kenya, the efforts which we are doing to, yes, I appreciate the legal fraternity needs to be active because the domain space is it may be a fairly old issue in the world, but in the African, this is a new perspective. So what we have done at Kenya, in the pipeline, we have already discussed the Law Society of Kenya in partnership with Internet. We are going to, and I think they are showing a good indication to accept education on domain disputes and dynamics around domains given to lawyers. And soon, you as a practitioner will be able to earn your professional points from the trainings which you get from training with partners in Japan. I think in the next 2 months, it will be circulated to you as members. The second effort which we have done within the region, we are partnering with Strathmore University, which has a district resolution unit within the university. Because this work as Professor indicated is starting to be popular in Kenya, because our job is not to be a court. And 3 cases per month is popular. And as to say, tell you on Monday I was served with documents from their police that don't have the name. They are here in court. So we'll see if Strathmore is stepping, and we'll go to the professor here and give it to the because it's not taking a lot of time. By week, we have a whole week, per month, we have a whole week of cases being carried out at home. So people are wondering, are we a small court or are we supposed to push them? Professor, I can see Barack raising it. So just to add on what is happening in the region, last year in May in Harare, Icann had a forum that brought together legal practitioners of the African continent, and we were discussing the same issue. I think my observation is in Central Africa, there is a stronger collaboration among the legal fraternity, and their responses appear to be united. So maybe that's a challenge, Rosemary, for the legal fraternity locally to also come together and that how to tackle. Thank you very much. Please.
My name is Icann. I want to thank the issues around. When we talk about the issues That is the concept. We're talking about some of them like voicelessness. Until now, so we have things. That we need to get to. We have space for things before it gets also.
Professor, may I proceed? Thank you. On the cost perspective, I talked of the mediation process. The mediation process is more of a negotiation and it's free, actually. The reason why we have the mediation process before we go to arbitration process is to make sure that the registrants, who are the domain owners, do not have an extra cost of expressing their disagreement. So the mediation process has absolutely 99% of the complaints are solved at the mediation level. So it has no cost for the registrant, but of course a cost at Kenny. But Kenny is an organization for payments, so it can pick up those costs. I appreciate your paralegal approach to solving the issues. The arbitrators who are not necessarily lawyers. Because if you look at the association of arbitrators, they are experts in various fields who are arbitrators. Because you have, if it's a medical issue, you have doctors who are arbitrators who understand what's the issue. So we have on our list arbitrators, arbitration firms. Some of them are not lawyers, I say that that paralegal background. But yes, I've identified the gap you have talked about. Then we will finish our negotiation with LSK. We will have a larger discussion, maybe talk with FTW and see how it can be approached from the Africa perspective to ensure that these ideas are able to be benefited by all the systems in Africa. That the paradigm approach are not independent. Est-ce qu'il y a une question? Oui.
Oui, merci. Je pense que c'est la résolution des conflits est très complexe. Par exemple, on peut avoir une révolution dans des personnalités qui sont dans un autre pays. Donc, par exemple, entre un État africain, le Sénégal par exemple, un État américain, autre continent, dans un autre continent. Par exemple, je suis allé au Dakar. Dakar, par exemple, c'est une ville sénégalaise. Dakar, c'est une ville aussi indonésienne. Donc, on peut créer son nom de même, je rentre au Sénégal, je viens Dakar, ça n'existe pas. Je pense. Dakar, avec les problèmes qu'on a eu au Sénégal. Donc, rien c'est Dakar. Dakar existe actuellement en Indonésie. Donc, quand il y a des conflits comme ça, entre États ou entre des personnalités dans différents conflits, comment on peut gérer ces conflits? Les différentes catégories, on peut les croiser entre les différentes catégories possibles. Comment cette problématique-là est appréhendée dans la question?
Merci. Je crois que d'ailleurs, il faut quand même que l'on regarde le champ de souveraineté de chaque registre. Le registre sénégalais est souverain sénégalais. Le domaine malais est souverain en Malaisie. Donc, généralement, et puis on sait que dans le langage, il peut y avoir des connotations très fortes entre des noms de domaines qui ont un sens dans une langue et qui n'ont pas de sens dans une autre langue. C'est très difficile de dire que le nom de domaine sous une autre extension porte préjudice à un pays. Donc, de facto, l'État ne peut pas ne pas se protéger. Par contre, Icann a mis en place un certain nombre de procédures, qui sont que la protection des noms géographiques. Le nom des domaines géographiques, dans lequel il y a un certain nombre de process. D'ailleurs, il y a eu beaucoup de consultations en ce sens. Et c'est là peut-être que c'est important que les gens participent un peu à toutes ces revues d'Icann, parce que quand il y a des consultations sur le règles à établir, par exemple, pour la protection des domaines géographiques dans le cas des GPLD, on s'aperçoit très souvent que les gens ne réagissent qu'après que le processus soit déterminé. Tandis que je crois que c'est ça qui est important. C'est-à-dire que derrière, il faut anticiper. Aujourd'hui, nous avons fait par exemple un certain nombre de lignes dans notre charte, nous protégeons les domaines géographiques. Comme le Sénégal, il est interdit d'utiliser Dakar.sn. Parce que du point de vue légal, on a une problématique si c'est la ville de Dakar, la mairie de Dakar, la commune de Dakar, la presqu'île de Dakar ou la région de Dakar, on ne sait pas exactement qui est gestionnaire de ce même domaine. Donc, on a vidé un certain nombre de possibilités de conflit à l'intérieur de la charte, mais il en restera toujours. Alors, je suis bien d'accord, je suis bien content que le Kenya ait donné son exemple, parce qu'on peut avoir une procédure nationale de résolution des conflits du même domaine, à travers justement ce processus qu'on a avec l'IDRP, alternative IDRP, mais quand c'est transnational, il faut qu'on s'apporte sur la règle des conventions internationales de protection des droits intellectuels. Et la grande difficulté aussi que je vois dans ces processus, et on voit ce qui est important, c'est quels sont les experts sur lesquels nous, les registres, nous pouvons nous appuyer. Quelle expertise légale, juridique, à quelle expertise juridique pouvons-nous faire appel? Est-ce que c'est la régulation? C'est un point intéressant, parce que la régulation peut apporter aussi sa part par rapport à tout. Il y a, tout à l'heure, l'intervenant président a parlé justement de l'enrichissement des entreprises, qui généralement c'était au niveau du registre de commerce. Il n'y a aucune protection de nom dans justement ces procédures administratives d'enrichissement d'une société. Puisque ce qui est important, c'est le numéro et le PIN qu'on va donner à la société. On s'aperçoit que, par exemple, je prends toujours l'exemple du Sénégal, mais ceux qui connaissent le Sénégal comprennent bien, la majorité des Sénégalais sont des Baoulés, et la majorité des sociétés s'appellent Touba. I don't know if you understand what I mean. In Senegal, most of the people use for the company the name Touba. Touba, it is a cities, but also with and if you have 10 companies with the name, same name Touba, which is the owner of the website Touba, something. That's very difficult. Et là, on a un problème de liaison entre la partie commerciale administrative et la partie domaine et aussi bien la partie protection. Et c'est là qu'on a un travail à faire pour mettre en place une gouvernance très forte entre les gestionnaires des entreprises, des structures qui enregistrent les entreprises, la protection des droits intellectuels et le nom de domaine de telle façon à pouvoir, peut-être, c'est une solution, quand on crée une société, réserver son nom de domaine dans le même temps, ce qui permet à ce moment-là d'éviter des multiples attributions. Ce sont les pistes. Donc voilà un peu, je crois que la réflexion doit être en cours aussi bien au niveau local qu'au niveau international et surtout participer aux réflexions qui sont mises en place par Icann justement pour essayer de régler ce type de conflit. Je pense que j'ai peut-être est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions? Peut-être avant que je te passe la parole. Any other remarks? Yes, yes, boss. I just wanted to know the room cost because most of the time we don't want to talk about the money, but sometimes it's quite important. So we saw your case in Senegal, also in Kenya. Not just particular about the room cost to the election process. Thank you. Yeah. At the mediation level, there's no cost involved. That's at the registry level because we handle it at the registry. So it's also putting the legal expertise paid by the registry. So all those processes there at the registry level When the application when the lawyers are involved, that's when there's a cost aspect. I hope clear that they will get it. Thank you. One last one. On this topic, I'm going the lawyers as far as you can. And the lawyers will qualify you as they prefer your help. But they don't mind you asking for their support, of course. Of course. Okay, thank you, Rob. I think the discussion is very interesting. So I think most of us we are here at least till tomorrow or during the week. So I think it's very important we continue this discussion. That is very important. As the numbers of restriction are growing in our CCTF East, and then we have opportunity for many new extension now. So it's important this topic. So we thank you for your great participation. When we are going out, we'll take the coupon for lunch. And then we'll try to, we got one presentation this morning, one internationalized domain name. So we'll start the session in the afternoon with this one. We'll try to make also the other presentations brief so that we will stay within the agenda. So what we are other announcements forward. No. Okay, so we will be back, let's say at 2. We'll try to be back at 2. So when we are going out, I think Sarah will give us the coupon for lunch. Where is lunch? Downstairs, please. So we try to be back at 2. We start the next session with the presentation of internationalized domain names. And then we have many lesson sessions in the afternoon. Thank you very much. Bon appétit. So les tickets à l'entrée, et quand on sort, on prend les tickets. Merci. Thank you.